It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Hi, my friends. Welcome to the Sam Lesante Show. Remember, folks, if you did not download our app, I highly encourage you to do so, SSP TV, on our app. And for those people who have smart televisions, download YouTube, search SSP TV, and subscribe. You can watch all of our shows all over the world. My guest today, Congressman Lou Barletta from the 11th Congressional District. And Lou, thanks again for coming on the show.
Good to be here, Sam.
Not that you're not doing anything, okay? You're in Florida, you're in Pittsburgh, you're in Philadelphia, you're all over the place. I really appreciate you coming in today. Bill, I want to get right to it. When the Congress passed the Omnibus Bill, okay, I received probably about 20 calls. What did your boy Lou Barletta do? Because in that bill was supporting something that you've been against for many years. Explain, which is Planned Parenthood. Right. What happened that you voted for that bill?
Well, first of all, we have to explain what an omnibus bill is. An omnibus bill is a giant spending bill that we are forced to vote on because the Senate has not passed a budget. We in the House have passed appropriations bills to fund the government. That goes over to the Senate. The Senate is to vote on it, and then we have a budget. Well, the Senate doesn't do that. And what happened is the Democrats in the Senate insisted that the only way they'll vote for any kind of spending to fund the government is if money is in there for Planned Parenthood and other things that I am just totally opposed for. I was an original co-sponsor to defund Planned Parenthood totally. However, because our leadership, which I'm not happy with at all, that they even put us in this position, to have to vote on something like this, we were then forced to make a decision to vote no. But what was also in that bill, Sam, was the largest amount of funding for the opioid epidemic in the country. I mean, every 20 minutes a baby is born addicted to opioids. I was forced to turn away from helping people with opioid addiction. It was the largest funding for our veterans in the history of our country ever. I would have had to vote against all of our veterans. It also had $464 billion for our military. Right now we have men and women who get in our airplanes that aren't safe to be flying. It also had an increase of a pay raise for our military folks. So I was forced to make a decision to either turn away from all of that and or vote for this, which included money. Which again, there's also language in this bill that directs that no federal money can actually be used for abortions, but not that without saying is
that's a joke.
Right.
That's a joke.
But we should never be in this position, and this is why the Senate, and this is why I'm running. This is why the Senate is so important, because they can't get 60 votes in the Senate. That means the Democrats get to dictate what they want in this bill, and then force us to be in a position to either approve it or not.
So the Democrats are holding you guys hostage.
Because they won't. Right. They won't vote for the bill unless they get
the Planned
Parenthood money in it.
So it reminds me, you're going to have an accident. So you determine what's the least amount of damage it will be caused.
This was a horrible bill.
Yeah.
I believe we should have a balanced budget amendment.
Yeah.
And that's the way we should run government. Yeah. But the fact is, we have obstructionists in the Senate right now who literally won't vote for anything unless they get some of this garbage spending in there, and then force us to take a position of choosing between our veterans, our military people with opioid addiction, and therefore they stick this stuff in.
On some of the shows that I'm doing, I'm asking the people, the voters, to Google the Democrat platform. And there it is. I mean, you read the Democrat platform, and I want to throw up. As a Catholic, when I look at that platform, I literally, Lou, want to throw up. Now, here's the thing that I'm confused about. And I don't care who I offend, because I live my faith. I'm a sinner, but the point is, when you look at that platform, I don't know how any Catholic in Congress could support Planned Parenthood, knowing that they're pulling little arms and heads apart. Okay, with that being said, Bobby Casey supports Planned Parenthood. Now he goes under the, when you hear people talk, he's pro-life. Okay, tell me why he says he's pro-life and why he's not pro-life.
Well, the National Right to Life, who score our votes, determine on whether you voted for life or you voted for abortions, in the last year had given him a voting record of 0 in voting for life. So, it's one thing to say something, but it's another thing when you're voting for, and that, I believe that as well. You cannot support Planned Parenthood and say you're pro-life, when they're dismembering little babies and using they were using taxpayer money to do that, and want to continue to fund that. Sam, it was so offensive of what Planned Parenthood was doing that we put more money in other women's health clinics that could perform, health services to women that Planned Parenthood was providing without the abortions part of it. So if we really want to do what's right, I don't believe any taxpayer, and I voted for that no taxpayer money should ever be used to kill babies.
It just, I just can't understand it. Now, you have a Bobby Casey supporting sanctuary cities. Okay, now here again, maybe there's a reason why he's doing that. Why would you want to support the sanctuary cities when we see what's going on in these cities?
Well, you're putting the American people at risk. Again, creating, first of all, defying the laws of our country, because no mayor has the right to refuse to enforce federal laws, but yet to actually support that and create a magnet for people who are in the country illegally, and some who would be drug dealers and gang members. Where do you think you're going to go if you have a city and a government that says you come here and we'll protect you? What kind of protection is that for the average citizen? What about the families that live there? What about people, that want to be safe? It's not a sanctuary for them. It's only a sanctuary for the gang members who want to go there, and the drug dealers who want to live there as well. How you could support sanctuary cities over the American citizens is beyond me.
It's called votes. See, it's called votes. If they found out that the illegals were Republican and voting Republican, you'd be able to see the wall from space. That's how fast they'd build us. But you know what you don't hear about? Excuse me. You don't hear about all the crimes that are happening in these cities, okay? These are things that I think the liberal press does not want to, unless it's a real major crime. Right. I mean, it's something that you have to pay attention to. I just wonder, and I don't know this for a fact, I'm wondering how many of these sanctuary cities have so much crime going on that's not being reported. I'm just being in the media, and know what the liberal press has been doing. I mean, they're just constant. It's just terrible.
And it's a good example, to what your point you were making earlier is this is how far left the Democrat Party has gone, that they're openly supporting people who are breaking the law over American citizens, and and again, it's just it's not where most people are, especially in Pennsylvania, who expect their elected officials to protect them, to protect our families, and not to make it harder for you to get a job. And that's when you support illegal immigration, as Senator Casey does, it makes it harder for you to get a job, and it makes it harder for you to get a raise, because you have people in here competing for your job, and depresses the wages of American workers. So it's a hard argument, one that I wouldn't want to make. I'm very proud of the fact that when I did what I thought was right at a time when I was trying to stop a problem that we were having here in Hazleton, and the federal government wouldn't do anything to help us. I went to Washington, I asked for help. They gave me a coffee mug, a lapel pin, and they say the right things, but they're afraid to actually stand up and do something. I did. I put myself out there and defended the fact that I believe in the rule of law. I believe in immigration. I believe in legal immigration to come to this country and to support, to have actually senators and Congress members supporting illegal immigration is something that I'll never understand.
Neither will I. The other thing is, I asked a few people that I met, I asked them if they're seeing a difference in their paychecks, okay? And of course, everyone I said, they're getting more money, okay? Some expected more, some are getting more than what they expected, all right? So if you're getting more money, all right, in your paycheck, and the unemployment rate is the lowest it's ever been, correct me if I'm wrong, and there are more Hispanics working in this country than ever before. There are more African Americans working than ever before. There are more jobs coming in, manufacturing jobs come in. Why would Senator Casey vote against that?
Voting against that is telling the people that if you elect him, he's going to raise your taxes.
It's coming back. Yeah.
Because he believes that more money should go to Washington rather than to people. And again, that's another position that I'm glad that I don't have to campaign on.
You know, it's interesting, Lou, because I said to a person and said, well, you know, Barletta, I said, well, how much you getting? It amounted to about maybe $2,800. I said, so here's what I want you to do, Jim. I said, make a check out for $2,800. Give it to Bobby Casey because he could spend your money better than you can spend your money, okay? Will you give up that $2,800?
And it's not crumbs. Let me tell you, $1,000 aren't crumbs either. And you know, you have Nancy Pelosi. That shows you how out of touch the party really has become. That nobody even came out after she said that and said that, you know, that they're not crumbs. I was at a ribbon cutting for an equipment dealer, and the owner there was telling me that he had one of his employees come in, and it was like it was Christmas time. He looked at his paycheck, and he had $48 more in his paycheck for that week.
Sure.
And this guy was just so happy telling him what he can do now with, you know, it's nearly $50 a week.
Yes.
That's almost $200 a month, and thinking of what he can do with that money. That's how out of touch Washington is. That, you know, they believe that's crumbs to you, and it doesn't mean anything, but it means a lot to a lot of people.
Ideology is a terrible thing, Louis. It's a terrible, terrible thing.
Unfortunately, people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have moved so far left that if you are not part of that ideology there, you are no longer part of the Democrat Party. This is not the same Democrat Party. You know, my father was a Democrat. I was a Democrat when I was younger too. This is not the same Democrat Party that stood up for working families.
So sad.
Right now, they want you to work and give, you know, where they can spend it in Washington.
I've told you this story. My mother, 87 years old, staunch Democrat. I mean, Roosevelt, and this is when the Democrats were really helping people, okay? They're not crazy and wacko that some of the platform is. Now, there are some Democrats we know that don't believe in that platform. 87 years old. She became a Republican only because of what she saw the Democrats were doing. Folks, I'm talking to Congressman Lou Barletta. Interesting, it's going to be interesting, folks. It affects your life. Remember, if you're getting that raise, you know, anything you're getting, and for those people that tell you, they tax you this way, they tax you this way, nonsense, but you know what you're putting in your pocket. If you know, if the Democrats take over, get that check out, give it back to them, because they could spend your money better than you can. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, 247SSPTV.com. Download our app, SSPTV, and you'll see why it's so important for all the local shows we do. You have a smart TV? Download YouTube, search SSPTV, subscribe, watch everything, including our news. My guest today, Congressman Lou Barletta from the 11th Congressional District, running for U.S. Senate. Now, Tucker Carlson had you on his show the other night, okay? What primarily was the reason why you were on his show, and what was it that you're trying to get across?
Well, Tucker had previously, the last couple of weeks, he was running a segment about the changing demographics in America, and he was highlighting Hazleton as a city that saw its demographics changing, and asked me to participate on the show to talk about it. And the point that I was there to make is that there's a difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration, and how that affected a community, especially when the demographics changes so suddenly and rapidly as we saw here in Hazleton. The challenges, and Tucker's point was that this is now something that's happening all around the United States. And where he wanted to go with, where he was going with it, is the fact that many of these politicians in Washington are not living in the same communities where towns have experienced the change and the challenges of what these cities are going through and dealing with it. They're living in much different neighborhoods, but yet not understanding what the issues are. And I was being at the forefront of the issue in Hazleton. I wanted to make sure we pointed out that I wanted to talk about the effects that illegal immigration has, not legal immigration. So that was,
that's always when you're on the show and I see people, what does Barletta have against immigrants? And here again, I don't think anything against. My grandfather was an immigrant.
In fact, Sam, I'm the strongest voice for illegal immigrants, because when I speak around the country and I speak about the issue in Washington, I talk about the fact that we are not being fair to the immigrants who come to the United States.
You're right.
Because we're making it harder for them to get a job, we're making it harder for them to earn more money, we're making it harder for their children to get an education. That's what we should be doing. They should be fighting, like I am, for immigrants who come into the United States, through the legal channels. And let's give their kids a good education, let's let them earn, and that means everybody in Hazleton who's here legally. However, illegal immigration is something totally different, and there are effects to a community that are very hard to fix when you have politicians, wanting to defend people who the illegal immigration versus standing up for legal immigrants, as I am.
Speaking of that, okay, you have parts of California actually thumbing their nose at the federal government, okay? What's happening with the Attorney General? I mean, I know he's going after some of these people. Well, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think it's finally coming to a head there. You have a state, California, that has been going this way, more and more sanctuary cities, and are now saying sanctuary cities aren't even good enough. Now we want to be a sanctuary state, and forcing other mayors to break the law as they are. And I'm very happy to see the Attorney General say, we're going to fight this. Sam, I experienced it firsthand as a mayor who wanted to enforce the laws that we already have. I was told by our federal courts that we were violating the supremacy law. And that's why we lost in the Third Circuit, our Hazleton case. And what that means is the supremacy law means that no municipality or state can have a law that exceeds federal laws. You can't override a federal law with your own law. Federal law is the highest. And they felt that in Hazleton that's what we were doing. We disagreed. But here is a clear-cut case where the state of California is saying, we don't care what the federal law says about illegal immigration. We're making our own law. And imagine what you're opening the door to for a mayor to say, I'm making abortions illegal in my community. I mean, you're now giving mayors the right to say whatever they feel. We're going to make that a law.
And they're defiant about it.
Right. I mean, imagine how crazy they would be if we outlawed abortions or an opposite position than what they feel. Yeah. So this is a case where the Attorney General has to step in.
Going back to, God rest her soul, my mother, one day I walked in there and she was so upset about a judge in San Francisco wanted to take under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance. And she said, I am so upset. She said, could you imagine with this country? I said, well, you know what, Mom, it's interesting. Because that federal judge who wants to pull under God was appointed by the guy you voted for, Clinton. Okay? So when we talk about the importance of the U.S. Senate
Right.
Congress. And I tell people, please check the credentials, okay? Like, check, go to Casey's thing, see his voting. Go to info at loubarletta.com, see what he voted for. How important it is for people to really understand, because, you hear, oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, I'm voting for him because he's an Irishman, and and I like him, and he's an Italian. Well, I don't want people voting for Lou Barletta or Bob Casey because they're Italian. I want them voting for people that are qualified. It affects our lives. Saying that, okay, your campaign, all right, you're going to have a lot of liberal papers, okay, a lot of liberal, talk show hosts, etc., are going to slant as much, especially when they see the undercurrent, okay, right. And that's good news. Yep. The good news is, and the bad news is, they're going to hit you, and the bad news is the same thing. How's the race going?
Well, I'm really excited about it. I mean, this race is going to be one of the top races in the country because the margin in the Senate, people say, why should I care? And why do people care outside of Pennsylvania? Because the margin in the Senate is so slim that this race here in Pennsylvania could determine and actually change the course of our country, where you have Schumer back in charge of the Senate and the Democrats, again, going back down the same path that they went with President Obama. The race is going very well, and I'm very excited. I'm happy to stand up and defend my record versus anyone else's record of what I've accomplished and what they've accomplished.
You talk about how the left is, how they're nuts, okay? You have a senator, was it Durkin you said, was it Senator Durman? Okay. Here's a Catholic that the bishop said, and Bishop was very nice about it. He said, because of your stand on abortion, we cannot give you Holy Communion. Now, in the Catholic churches, that's the most important thing of the Mass. How can you give up your faith? How could you say, thumb your nose at your faith because of a few votes you want because you're supporting what they think health care for women? That's how sick it is, in my opinion, okay? Now, the bishop did not criticize him. He said, let's pray for this guy. Again, he was very nice about it. But here's a Catholic, such as we have a Bobby Casey, a Catholic. How do you support everything that is contrary to what you believe in?
I'm happy that I'm in Washington and having actually an opportunity to save the lives of babies. And I use that position. My vote is to stand up for those that cannot stand up for themselves. And again, that has to be what your belief is. If you vote for Planned Parenthood, you cannot support saving the lives of babies because of what Planned Parenthood does.
So senior citizens say, well, okay, yes, Sam, but we're concerned about our Social Security. And here's another thing. You Republicans are going to take away Social Security, Medicare, the scare tax. You want Barletta in? He's taking away your Social Security. He's taking away Medicare. You're not going to and the scare taxes and seniors are shaking, okay? And forget about euthanasia, folks, because if they have no respect for life before you're born, when you get sick, you're gone. So when you look at this, Lou, and you look at the craziness, okay, I can't fathom.
Those scare tactics have worked in the past for many, and I'm sure blowing the dust off of that playbook again.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to take away their Social Security. He doesn't care about you, and that's always when that's your message and not about the fact that this is where I've been there for 12 years and this is what I've accomplished. It tells you that you probably haven't accomplished that much.
You look at, the state of Pennsylvania, you look at the record, and here again, love to have Bob Casey on the show and tell me why he voted against the tax creed, he voted against these forced sanctuary cities. Yeah, to me, in my opinion, it's votes. It's votes, okay? And but with Trump, okay, very quickly, how's he doing, the president?
I think the president's doing exactly what he said he was going to do, fighting for the American people, fighting for American families, telling these other countries, bringing them to the table and saying, you're not going to take advantage of us again and take our jobs without us getting something back. saying that we were going to build a wall. That's what he campaigned on.
Yeah.
I think he's doing everything that he said he was going to do.
Yeah, isn't that sad when someone says I'm going to do things and they do it, like Tom Corbett said I'm doing it, he did it,
Right.
and they voted him out of office?
Yeah.
I'd understand it. We'll see you after the primary.
Thank you, Sam. Good
Okay,
to be
Lou
here.
Barletta, folks, 11th Congressional District. Just check the records, folks. Google the Democrat platform. Please, read it. And for those of you who have any morals at all, you're going to throw up. It's that bad. It is that bad. We'll see you next time.